What's up?
Jason Schweitzer,
And Mitch Caps.
what's on your mind?
I don't know. What's on your mind?
Everything. How do you give no. I'm not gonna use the attention word, but how do you sift and sort all the things that are on your mind?
I don't know.
Other
How do
people
you
do it.
call? I think
Do it?
I think other people do it better than I do.
Yeah. People ask us questions or people tell us to do things and then our attention is bound.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't have anything on my mind. We just fired this up because you said let's go.
I had everything.
Oh, we need to pray for Ruthie.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't gonna say her name, but yeah, we could.
Oh, I can't cancel it now. We're live.
Well, no,
There we go. You have no idea.
She could be anyone. Nobody knows who she's affiliated with or anything.
Why are you doing that?
But it would be good. I mean, if you were gonna pray for her.
If I was, I would do it. Okay, well, I'll give it a shot. These spontaneous prayers, they either go, it's hard to ever walk away from them pleased. I feel like I'm always just like, as soon as I start, I'm like, why are there no more words? I forgot the entire English language.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll keep it vague and short. And I shouldn't have mentioned a name. Sorry. I get thrown off because,
It's a very common name.
Yeah, that's true. All right. We'll start with that, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Heavenly Father, we come before you right now. We just want to lift up our friend Ruthie to you, and we just ask that you be with her in this moment, and we ask that you send your angels to surround her and give her a spirit of peace, and let her rest and recuperate. And we just thank you for your healing power flowing through her body, and for any pain that is coming against her, for any affliction or infirmity, anything. We just ask you in your name and tell it to be right now, to live in the body, and just we ask you and thank you that your healing power and your Holy Spirit is flowing through her body and quickening and giving life to it. And we thank you for her wellness. In your name, I pray. Amen.
Amen. So what's obvious to me is that I don't pray very often, and it's sort of embarrassing having been a Christian since I can actually remember. And so when my wife's dad was ailing, you know how it is when things are going bad, you reach out for prayer a lot more often. And so I was, and people like you, maybe especially you, were very vigilant to join me in prayer. But I felt, like what I've come to realize is that prayer is not what I've come to realize because I haven't made it real to myself. But what I believe is, what I think is, prayer is responsible for a lot more than we can assess. I mean, we don't always know what it's doing, but I have a sense that it's kind of holding things in the balance, or so my great grandmother is still alive, and she prays like a lot, like grandmothers seem to somehow. And she would tell me when her daughter died, my grandmother, she told me that she was going to miss getting a phone call from her every night, because she did. And every night when she called her daughter, she would say, "Hey, we need to pray." And she would pray for like an hour straight on the phone. And then she would say, "Okay, it's your turn now." And my great grandmother would be like, "What is there even else to pray about? You just prayed for like everything that we could possibly pray for." But then she would take her turn and pray. And my brother was speculating that, when my great grandmother dies, and her daughter having already died, or let's say when my mother dies, who also prayed often. Hey, Andre.
Yeah.
Uh, then there would be like this big void in the prayer world, and there would be like this enormous vacancy where once there was like many prayers being offered up on a daily, nightly basis. Now there would be this void, and I thought about that, and it feels like it's like a person's responsibility to spend a great deal of time in prayer, and it also just feels like it's the most obvious thing in the world for a Christian to do, except I can't help, and this is terrible, but feeling like it's not that big a thing or that there's not much going on when I do it. And maybe my prayers are just kind of worthless prayers because they're not the prayers of a righteous man.
Mm.
There's always, I think there are things that are hindering my prayers or something. And then what I want to do now is just be a person who's devoted to prayer. Um, and I was talking with people kind of serendipitously lately about television and getting a television set because I have an old television that is in my living room. First of all, it's like at a prominent place in my living room, and I think that's not uncommon. But it's in there, and there was talk about getting a smart TV or a bigger TV or a stand for the TV or these kind of amenities for the TV. And I'm like, okay, there's the analog somehow. If there's this television set that I'm giving all this attention to, there's if I'm giving it this attention and I'm investing in it, there's
Hmm.
you're kind of training your mind and your heart to be motivated by that thing. So what a lot of people do is they develop a space in their home that's for prayer. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, maybe that would be a good thing to do because if I'm going, even if I'm just going about that, if I'm like thinking about, okay, what could this space be like? And then going through the actions of like gathering what maybe supplies might be involved in something like that, then I'm training myself to value that. Uh, and I don't know, I got to pray more. And I do, like, I pray like I think, like, you know what I'm saying? Where you have like
Mm.
reflexive,
Well,
like address to
I think it's
God.
not about the place. It's about
It's not.
it's
No.
investing the time in your
Yes.
day. Like the place could be anywhere. Like
Yes.
people think pray and they think, oh, well, I kneel down at church and like that's where I do my prayers or like next to my bed. But like it's not about where you do it. It's about when you do it and doing it. It's like
Doing it.
in
Yes.
the Viveki language, it's doing the paratelic instead of the telic. You're not doing a telos. Like you're not praying because you want a result. You're praying because it's the ritual of praying. It's the covenant with God. Like putting that like those that moment together to connect to try and connect to him and ask for like one of the what was it acts like the four types of prayer, um like whatever sort of type of prayer you say, you trying to make that connection. um so it's a practice of doing it and like actually doing it, so just putting
Andre,
that time aside.
I like
Hmm.
what you're saying, and I'm not trying to change the subject, but has anyone ever in your life very much yelled at you?
Yeah.
Was that like your parents or a boss or who's yelling at you? Your friends, maybe?
uh, I mean, probably just random people, but like no one like close to me has like yelled at me like abusively.
Oh, good. What about you, Jason? Have people yelled at you a lot?
A lot. Probably not a lot. Everybody loves me. You know this.
But does anyone yell at you at this juncture of your life, like even periodically, every now and then?
No, no. Like
No, at this point in my life, I don't think so. I mean, I've had people yell at me for sure. Me and my mom used to like scream at each
Really?
other.
I don't
Very,
want to.
yeah,
A
like
mutual
yelling
one. A
matches. I
mutual
jumped
one
out of
is
the moving car. You know my favorite woman in the world. You know that did that
Saoirse
scene.
Ronan.
I did that same scene. Yeah. And what was that, Lady Bird, where she jumps out of the car? I did that
Oh
with my
yeah,
mom. We would fight. We
that's
would
so crazy.
fight.
But I don't mean a mutual yelling. That's not the same. I mean just kind of being yelled at. I wonder when you've been yelled at and you weren't yelling back, but you were being yelled at. You were like the victim, so to speak. How did you do? I mean, were you okay, or did it really crush you?
I mean, you're not really a victim. Like, if you put yourself as a victim, you're already like putting yourself as an inferior character in like the situation. Like,
But some people can't help it.
why is it like it's reactionary? It's like it's human nature to sort of be like, "Hey, don't yell at me. I'm going to yell back." But like most of the time, it's really just been on Discord, and people who yell like usually it's like going from 0 to 100. It's like they don't just start off like fully yelling or like going really quiet, then gradually like evolving to yelling. They'll like snap and be like, "Hey, listen here, buddy, blah blah blah," and jump into it. And when that change in like tone and like energy happens, it's like, well, if you have to resort to yelling to try and like make yourself more important, like think you're getting the upper hand, it's obvious that you're not already.
Well,
Like,
with that, I mean, has someone ever been yelling at you and you're like, this is good? Like, even retrospectively, that was good that they were yelling at me.
some people need to get the anger out. Some people, like, because I can keep my cool pretty well, and like I'm able to like do conflict de-escalation. It's like if you start yelling at me, I'll be like, all right, like get the yelling out. Like, so why did you feel the need to yell right then? Like, did you want to like, do you think you're more correct than I am? Like, was it the tone and like the do you have like a lot of volatility or like did you just need to like express so much like what you needed to say that you need to have it louder because you didn't think I was hearing it before? Like what compelled you to yell? And usually if they put it to contemplation, people haven't really thought about that.
There were a couple of questions. Sandy asked why I asked about the question. I was just imagining the three of us yelling at each other, and I don't know why I was imagining it. Prayer is a funny thing. What do you think is its purpose? What do I think the purpose of prayer is I don't know. It's communion with God. I just think it's the manifestation of that relationality that's going on. I mean, it has a lot of purposes though, and doggone it, I feel like I know that if I prayed, it would change my life, but I just like barely pray. I reflexively pray, but I don't.
You don't know it will change your life, but you know the ritual and like the act of going to pray will like be good for you, and like it will cleanse your mind and perhaps cleanse your soul in the process. Whereas being procrastinating, being like I should pray more, I should go to church more, like I should like do better, like that's always a like I should. But it's not like I am. Or
Craig and I
I like
talking about this.
yeah.
You know, should has become like a cuss word, but it's like the second best thing to just doing it because you love it or because it's your passion.
Well, not even because you love it, because it's the right thing to do.
That sounds like should.
You should do it because the right thing to do is different to it's the right thing to do, so do it.
That's interesting. I don't know what that means.
I'm trying to pull that up. I'm glitching up real bad, guys. So sorry if I might. Yeah. I'm trying to pull up that comment, but it won't come up.
It's showing up on our side.
Okay.
What I don't want to happen is I don't want to wake up in 10 years and be in the exact same place I am now because there's so much that's bad about the place that I'm in now internally. And it's not like I don't know what to do. It's not like I don't know. The same things win that always won.
Serious?
Hey, yes, explain the prayer.
Jacob.
So the
explain yourself,
the Hebrew word to pray is the reflexive form of the verb to judge or to be like an arbiter. So the way Hebrew works is there are 3-letter roots, and then the 3-letter roots are put in one of 7 constructions. And so, for example, the word to see, right, in the reflexive becomes until we to see each other, right? Lehitraot is how you say goodbye in Hebrew. It means until we see each other again, right?
Right.
So that's the reflexive of to see.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize you were saying reflexive in a grammar sense, because I had said it in a.
Yeah, you said it was reflexive.
But I meant it was
Right.
like a reflex.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
so it's like the Hebrews have the reflexes, say
the-
word, and it's like, just
the-
need to
the
say
word-
another Hebrew word in response.
the word to pray is something that is reflexive. It is upon. It's something that is, well, I mean, I guess it could also be instinctual, but it's something you do to yourself.
You would not then, I mean, at the very basic level of my understanding, I would think about prayer as a one-sided or two-sided conversation.
One-sided or two-sided conversation.
But you're talking about something that you're doing to yourself, and I'm trying to.
So I'm just pulling up the concordance because I figured that might help. So
Craig is our pal, Andre. He's just, I think he's
Oh,
just
okay.
joshing you.
Well, my answer's still the same. It's like formal line.
So Strong's concordance. So the word tefillah, prayer, comes from palal, which means well, so halal means to intervene or interpose. Arbitrate, judge, intercede, pray. I don't know. Did that help at all? It always helps for me. The idea
To
that
intervene, to interpose.
prayer is something you do to yourself always really.
I'm still struggling with that, I guess. Something that you do to yourself.
Yeah, it's an action. I mean, so.
Can you create an analogy?
Well, okay, so like when you pray, it's not like you're telling God something he doesn't know.
Right.
So what are you actually doing when you pray is you are composing yourself and your ideas towards God,
Okay. Yeah, I follow you now.
right? Like until I say my prayer, I don't have it formulated. I don't know what I'm asking God for myself. But God already knows. So I'm not telling him anything. I'm telling myself.
Yes, I think I do kind of get that it's not strictly communicative. I wonder if you still feel that there's a communal angle to it, something that's relational and again, like you say, I mean, you're not communicating anything new, anyways, to him. You're not informing him, but you are communing with him. I think there's something very relational about the practice.
Yeah, no. It is definitely relational. You're orienting yourself toward God. So one of the things that I'm generally not a fan of Dennis Prager, but one of the things he said is he's only prayed to God for things twice. Because he feels like it's imprudent. Like who am I to ask God for something, right? Which I think, I mean, misses the boat in certain ways, but at the very least, it does that relevance realization thing of like, hey, is this what I should be asking God, right? If I am talking to God, right? Am I saying the same silly, stupid things I normally would, or am I like addressing the the Lord of the universe, right? And I think that it orients you.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
orients you. Yeah.
So
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 yeah,
when do
Chris,
you? Oh,
child father dynamic. Like when you go talk to your dad, right? Do you like you're gonna ask your dad for something, right? For money,
mhm.
especially when you were younger, right? You're like you collect yourself and you in a way you compose yourself, and I think that's what prayer does.
Good. Yeah, I'm on board
I
with
would,
that.
yeah, but so it does that while simultaneously asking for something. Because I mean, you were talking about Dennis Prager, and
Yeah, I think
he
that's
only
crazy.
asked for God for something twice, and then if God knows everything, and there's, if you kind of take that stance, like why would you even like? So you're saying the real intent of prayer is just to kind of reorient yourself. It's not really even to ask for anything at all. Should you ever ask God for anything then?
Well, okay, so first of all, Matthew, please don't troll me. This has been like, yeah. Um, what's going on Twitter has been bothering me a lot. Um, but that's actually the point of the Amida is there are things we should learn to ask God. That's why we have 3 obligatory prayers every day, right? Because it's
Mm,
teaching you what to ask for and
okay.
what is relevant, and that's where the Our Father comes from, and like Jesus says, this is how you should pray, right? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, right? All that stuff. Because he's it's it's telling you what you should be asking for and what your desire should be.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, just go with not my will but yours, as a rule. Um, but what I really understand, what I really understand, and this is going to sound maybe a little, how I don't know how to put it, but I mean, I'm speaking about this in a quantitative way, and I know that might draw some criticism. But what I realize is I need to pray more, um, and I mean not just more, um, but I need to pray more qualitatively as well as more quantitatively. I guess I just need to pray more, and I'm not doing it, and it shows. And I think that prayer probably changes the world and is changing the world, as people are lifting up prayers all over it, um, and it makes a difference. And I know it makes a difference, and I have such confidence that it makes a difference. That like I was saying, when people would tell me that they were praying for me and my wife and her dad when he was ill, um, the only thing I could say, I mean, of course, thank you, but like it's making a big difference. And I didn't know exactly how it was making a big difference. I just knew certainly that it was.
I gotta answer this call, Mitch. It's my sister. Sorry, we were leaving tomorrow, so I'm
Okay,
sorry.
wait.
Oh,
Andre, what's on your mind anyhow?
I was just thinking about like what you were saying about yelling before. Do you want me to yell at you? We can practice.
Do you have it in you to yell at me?
No, like
I
you want me to
think
yell?
if we were, I think you could do it organically. I don't know
I
if you
mean,
could.
like, well, what if I do it right now? Like, see,
I don't think
that's what.
I would be able to take it very seriously, and I don't think you would be able to take
Wait,
yourself seriously.
did you expect like me to yell then?
Do I expect? What I think is you would
I
try
mean,
to
I just did.
manufacture a
No,
yell.
I just did then. Like, but did you expect that?
I didn't even clock that you yelled. That's how unyell it
Exactly.
was. That
That
was
that
the
but like that's also like how organic it was. I mean, you're expecting like our tone, and then like I think you'll think of shouting rather
yes,
than yelling,
yes. What
because
do you think?
yelling's in between. Shouting and like so it's yelling, shouting, and then screaming. So
Oh, I don't make a big difference. I just mean like elevated in volume and in tone speech.
what about
Um,
how loud? Like because
so you, yeah,
are you also like expecting aggression with the yelling? Because you can yell
yeah,
like
yeah,
neutrally. That's
yeah.
the thing.
Yeah,
Like what you can exclaim. You can like be like, I fucking love ice cream. I love ice cream so much.
yeah.
Like,
I would consider
but that
that sounded like
wasn't
a yell because
aggressive.
that was
Yeah, it was a
a
yell, but like
that
that
was
wasn't aggressive, was it? That was passionate.
yeah. And so yeah, I do have aggression in mind, but I
Hmm.
think passion it can have a chilling effect. Like sometimes when people are passionate about something, technically I know them well enough to know that they're not angry with me, but it does leave me shaken. Um,
Mm.
and I notice in myself that there's a I don't think it's apathy. I really don't. But a lot of times I just don't get flapped. And I'm like, why? Why? You know, I don't think it's because I'm dispassionate, and I don't think it's because I'm particularly patient. And so there may be some kind of problem there, or some kind of virtue there. It's a toss up.
Or maybe it's the idea of and concept of conflict.
I don't remember the last time I yelled.
Yelling infers like there's a conflict happening, like there's an argument. If I start yelling, like it's like, oh, like why is he angry? Like, are we having a problem? Is there a problem we need to
Sometimes,
work through?
and sometimes you have to cover yourself. You're like, listen, I'm not angry. I love this stuff. I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right,
well,
but it's always post talk, right?
you
So
enjoy argument as a sport.
not as a sport, like it ends up happening around me, but like I don't try and throw myself into it.
Well, I enjoy like the sport of it, kind of. And a lot of times, especially with my wife, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be having an argument. I'm having a blast. I'm feeling light as a feather, and then she'll suddenly like that you know she can't take it. That's enough. It's over, and she kind of will get upset. And
Yeah,
you know, I was whoa whoa. So I don't always
yeah.
realize how I come across to people.
I mean, but if I thought of it that way, like I'm too good at it to sort of see it as a sport. Like it would ruin me if like I'm like, okay, let's find the next person on Discord to like make angry. Let's really wind
Um,
them up.
well, and I don't mean the I don't mean argument for arguments. What I don't mean
Like,
is like
well,
making someone feel small. I don't mean that. I mean
no,
like
no, but you don't have like I'm saying that for any reason. It's like it- just as like whether it's like trying to like logical argument, trying to tear down like their opinion, like trying to just be a contrarian. Like there's many sort of ways to go about it, but whatever way, like um, it comes too naturally to me that like I don't want to take up my own time and get like emotionally invested in things that I don't have to. It's like,
mhm,
oh, you're gonna vote for Trump? Let me tell you why Trump's bad, and
mhm,
here are my like premises. And it's like,
mhm,
I don't care. But people are gonna vote for Trump because they're just gonna vote for Trump. People are not gonna like you in the world because just you can't be like liked by everybody that exists. So you need to accept the the reality of these things, and
It's true.
instead of trying to argue with them, be like, well, hang on, let me prove why like you should like me when you don't like me. It's like, well, no, some people you can't argue against, and you have to accept that's how they're always going to think.
But you're always going to try to persuade people for the rest of your life, and that's an important
No,
level.
but no, you're not. The only reason you might do that is because you're trying to get validation from people who aren't going to give it to you. You're not getting external validation. You're trying to persuade them to sort of be like, oh, come on, like I'm a nice guy, keep liking me. It's like, no, you're trying to get strangers to validate your personality and your identity instead of yourself, and being like, no, I am enough. Like I don't need Jacob to be like, oh, you're a nice boy. You're not Jewish, but that's okay. Like I'll forgive you. It's like, no, I don't need validation from Jacob. I need validation from myself. Be like, okay,
But not
it's
just yourself, right?
cool, but like, but I accept myself. Not just other people do help, and like when you invest time and energy into your friends, you want validation from them, like that you're doing the right thing. It's a good relationship, and they respect you. But like as far as it goes, like when you interact with the outside world, you don't need validation from people who don't know who you are, and like need time. If you're trying to seek out that, you're like really grasping at straws.
Well, the only reason, look, if we were just kind of brass tacking this space here, the only reason we would want validation, me from you, for example, is because this space is broadcasting things that we find are important. So I more so than wanting you to validate me, which I may very well want, because maybe a lot of people, and maybe I'm one of them, have an instinct, a sort of a satanic instinct that they want people to worship them and love them. But more likely, I think, I hope, better angels here. Well, we just want the idea that we're presenting to be validating, and we're sort of standing in as the as the face to the idea that we think is important and we think is worth putting out there. So maybe that's why we want validation in this space, because any other reason, yeah, it's probably a dead end. And I mean the internet is so, but we want validation from people in our own lives because we feel that they are good metrics for how well or not well we're doing.
Yeah, but people we know, like, yeah, for people we know, yeah, but I think you're putting like validation on the face of something else. Maybe respect, maybe like compliments. Like, I don't need validation from you, but validation when it's given mutually and sort of without reciprocal nature, it's respected and admired because it's showing that the person sort of has seen a part of you and like boosts up who you are or who you think you are, and they're like, yeah, you are like that. It's like, oh, okay, so this person has only talked to me for a short amount of time. They see like the thing I'm trying to show to the world, so it feels good. But when it doesn't happen, it's like, well, I don't care because like we've only talked for 20 minutes. Like, how are you supposed to know, like, even in an iota of who I am and how I present myself?
Here, it's not. I almost really think it's not. It's almost not about who you are. It's almost not. I don't want to go whole hog on that, but I know that I don't know why you're on here, but I would assume it's because you have things that you feel strongly about that are relative to the kinds of things that tend to be talked about here. And my validation serves your ends of seeing those ideas propped up and broadcast in a meaningful way.
I disagree. I mean, there are some things I have got strong opinions on, definitely, but I don't come on here to display my strong opinion. I come on here for the intellectual discourse to like see what's being said and commune with people who I know I can connect with.
So
like,
you come more as a student than a propagator.
No, not even a student. I come here as an equal. Like I've been on Jacob's live streams for like a year and a half now. As he said, like I'm like probably the OG of the bunch. I've been on longer than most people, even Hezzy, I think. Like I predated him.
Is this to speak to your equalness or to your headedness?
No, it's to speak to like initially I came to ask like questions, but I didn't come as a student, but I also didn't like come as a teacher to be like, well, here are my viewpoints and here's what I want to tell you to be. I came to discuss like things
Exchange.
I thought about and also like learn things at the same time. It's an equal flow of information. It's we all like teach each other.
But it's not though, is it? I mean,
No, it's not a status thing. Dust to dust. It's the way to approach other people in like in the space.
the exchange probably isn't equal, just because probably some people that come on here know more, are more experienced, are better at.
Sure, but I'm saying the way you approach it is sort of one of equality. Like you probably like one person may have knowledge far exceeding the other, and the other person may want to learn things and so on. Like that's the intention, but also the orientation. But the way in which you orient yourself towards the other people, and getting set on the same page, that's what's important. If I sort of come here and I'm like, okay, I'm the big science guy, like let me tell you about science, like oh you talk about physics, so let me tell you about physics. You only know like a tiny bit, I know like this much. Same thing, like if Jacob said like, if I asked him like, oh Jacob, what's what's a mitzvah? Is that like is that the same as sin? Like mitzvah's bad, right? What can you tell me what that is? If he just went like laughed at me and went, go read the whole Talmud, like and come back to me, like then you'll understand what it is. Like that wouldn't help. He could brush me off, but
Yeah, and over time,
instead, if he
validate
yeah,
and
if he
then
just
he
educates me, yeah. Well, if he educates me, it's like, okay, so this is what it is. And like he knows more than me, but by making himself as an equal and sort of we're like bringing ourselves to the same spot, we can interchange knowledge and information so much better. And um, there's no superiority. There's no sort of like ego. It's just like, well, okay, if you want to learn something, I can teach you this thing. And but is there anything you want to ask?
Yeah, so I guess in that sense, I still see the validation element to be pretty significant, because I think if he did in the example you gave just kind of brushed you off,
Mm-hmm.
that you're so dumb for not knowing that already or something, then he would be a little less valid in the eyes of those participating in this. And man, it's kind of annoying that there's always an element of self-advertisement in ever persuading anyone of anything or teaching anyone anything, because he wants to see the type of question you asked. He wants that information to be out in the world. He wants people to know about that because he values that stuff. But
Yeah.
he has to do a little. He has to run defense on his own personality in some ways.
In what way?
Just like that, he can't just be in the habit of brushing people off, or the less taste he exudes, in his presentation, the more people are going to be likely to discount him. It's not easy to separate the art from the artist, and
Yes, being diplomatic in response, but
Mhm.
like
And that's the extent that he would need validation, and it would only be I
I don't
think.
think it's validation though. Like
Mhm.
I in that act of like education and like conversation, I don't think people are looking for validation innately. That comes like afterwards. You may get validation from like the person respecting the way you approach them, but to come to the conversation being like, well, I want this smart person to teach me things, and I want to get validated from that exchange. It's like, what are you getting validated by? That what they talk to you? Like, where does that validation sit?
Man, maybe I'm just not tough enough to separate validation from this whole experiment of knowledge exchange, because I'm always thinking about the person I'm talking to, how emulable that they might be when I'm receiving information from them. Because Look, I think we're almost past the kind of expertise check mark, and in terms of who we trust and why.
How are you using the term validation, Mitch?
Yeah, I
don't know.
think
I
we
can't even
probably
join this
really
conversation. I have no idea what you
so.
mean.
I
I feel like you
if,
guys are using the term differently, but I could be wrong
probably
on my
here
view.
and there. I think if we run the tape back, it's that I we don't need each other to validate each other, because we're kind of disembodied personalities on the web, and we all have friends and families in our own life who are doing the metrical work of
The way
teaching us.
you're using it
Uh,
almost seems like you want you're using the term validate, something like affirmation. You want someone to affirm you, and then I don't know if but can't tell if Andre is saying like more as in like you give validation as sort of like someone's giving you credentials. But I guess there probably isn't really much of a difference, is there?
no, I don't think so. I think there's some nuance, but not enough to.
Because I mean, I would almost want you both to affirm me all the time, because I would feel, but more in a relational way, like I think that's kind of what you're getting at. Like when we're conversing, like you kind of want to feel that person is like at least affirming who you are, like kind of giving you space, or I don't know.
Well, I think I'm similar.
That's the vibe I'm getting from you, but I don't know if that's correct. I don't know.
I think I'm similar to Andre in that I'm less interested in the validation of kind of disembodied personalities on the internet, whereas I think you take internet relationships
So
a lot more.
Oxford Dictionary of Psychology says validation, the active process of making something valid, ratifying or checking that it satisfies certain standards or conditions. In psychometrics, the process of establishing the validity of the test. So that's
Works
like
for me.
the definitional approach to it. But
Yeah, that works for me.
Validity of the test. So kind of like it's integrity. You're kind of
well, the internal validation, like that's the thing in psychometrics. But like say validity,
yeah, I would want that. I would want that from everybody.
yeah.
But maybe that's. I mean, maybe that. But I guess I get what you're saying too. Like, yeah, where there's a. I don't know.
Say if there's affirmation, probably not.
Is that really true? You know what? You can never win with people. You just have to do the right thing. That's going to remain true. But sometimes the right thing is courting validation because it's a means to an end.
How did this come up? I was on the phone. What were you guys talking about?
We got back in on yelling, which I'm still very interested in.
Yeah, I've yelled at you, Mitch. I'm still ashamed about it.
Well, I go back and forth on your having yelled at me. I think I've yelled at you too. But what I mean is,
you're like way nicer than I am.
When I say I go back and forth on it, I think I don't mind you yelling at me as much as I mind.
I do. I don't like it.
You yelling at me. I just want us to never give up, on a conversation. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like when the yelling starts, it's close to giving up.
Yeah, Casey's right. Yelling in good faith. That's why it doesn't like. I can give an example of it, but you're going to be like, oh, well, I expected that. Like, it doesn't affect me now, but like, that's because it's in good faith. Like, because I'm not being malicious. If I like snap and swap, and if I like try and attack you, then it's gonna that's gonna affect you.
Mm-hmm. I doubt very much.
And of course, like going to this space, I'm not gonna like approach anyone like that because that's not what we're here for. If I was to do that, I'd ruin the stream. I mean, sure, I could. Like, I could throw things at you and nail you down, and like you'd like disconnect. I'd be like, "Ha, well, I got rid of him." But, why?
Well, look, I would be shocked if the three of us started yelling at each other before this stream ended. I would be shocked. I don't think we could organically
put money down on it.
Maybe. I mean, but the thing is, now that we've talked about it, it's going to be even more unlikely because it's always going to be like, I'm manufacturing this, it's just yelling because we talked about it.
Well, I mean, like it's easy for you to say Mitch, bitch, with your like background doesn't exist. What are you hiding behind you? It's like What do you got to hide, Mitch?
Are you talking about the blur?
Yeah. Why are you blurred, Mitch?
Yeah.
To
Why
tell
are
you
you blurred?
the very truth,
Yeah.
I get that it's a kind of a security blanket for me, because
Ah, so you've got something to hide, do you, Mitch?
yes, as long as I can remember, I've had like this kind of uh, re- keeping things close to the chest, and what not only do I feel like it was a security kind of thing at first, but then I think it also evolved into like a social strategy that was extremely effective and extremely destructive, obviously, because hiding things is
So
not
you're
helpful.
showing that you've got a big vulnerability and you don't want anyone to like poke at it.
Yeah, and but you control the narrative. The more you hide, never tell people what you did for over the weekend because their imagination is going to be so much better. They're going to think you
Yeah.
did
But
stuff.
also saying like, well, I don't want people to see this part of that. Like, this is why I do that because I don't want
I
anyone to see this. Like,
I
this is
got a
how I'm
question
secure.
about that. Do you feel? I know there's a difference between hiding something and lying, but do you feel like are you ever convicted by that? Because there's this because when I picked up smoking again, like I mean, I don't smoke anymore. Pray for me. But when I had picked it up back up after I'd quit for so long, I remember I called my mom like right away and I told her.
Yeah.
And then my youngest sister Natalie, Mitch, she was like, "Why would you do that? You're so dumb." She was like, "You don't have to tell her everything." And I was like, "But it's weird to me because I'm like, I understand I don't, but it's just like there seems to be like this wall. Like if the more things I keep secret, the less intimate you can be with someone. And when it's someone like that close to you, like your own mother, it's like you kind of want them to know everything in a way. But then there's certain
I
things
feel
like I don't
that.
tell her at all
Yeah.
because I just don't really care. Yeah. But like I don't know,
Yeah.
it's just different.
I feel
with
I've done that. It's like when there have been big things, like when I feel like people are going to find out if someone found out about it, like it would like ruin me or like it'd be so embarrassing.
get
I'd
that
rather like
energy.
bear it. Like I've told people like, yeah, I've done heroin before. And they're like, I'm like, yeah, I just like did it once like 9 years ago, and I've never done it since. And they're like, oh, okay, so like you've been to the extreme. I'm like, it was not exactly. I never got hooked. Like I only did it like once or twice. But me saying that up front, like that's already primed them for being like they get the reaction like out in the open. Whereas if
Funny.
somehow like I presented myself like in a clean cut way, different, and like they're like, oh, you're very smart, you read books and blah blah blah. And they build up their image of me, and then somehow they find out that they go, oh, like, well, I thought you were smart, but like now I know this fact about you. Like I think about you completely differently. So they can ruin that like internal validation of your character if you don't sort of put that thing front and center.
Isn't it funny that the kind of hyper revelation version of or versus the hyper hiding is both like a defense mechanism? Like I want to get out ahead of that narrative so that I
Hmm.
still control it, or I want to keep it
Yeah,
back here so that I still control it.
yeah, I think it's like an openness. Like you don't just leap to it and like tell everyone everything bad about you, but like if you're like have a certain level of openness and honesty, you sort of like let it like organically like get out there, but you don't sort of like go, okay, here's my list of like my like worst flaws, so we can just get it over with, and like you can think of me as like a great person. And on the other hand, you don't be like, okay, that's all the stuff I don't want you to know about. So it's like, don't look over there, because if you do, you're just gonna like crush me. You go, it's somewhere in between. It's like, yeah, if the topic comes up, it's like, yeah, like yeah, I've done drugs. Like I nearly killed someone once, but that was a mistake. Whoops, I was a bit drunk in the car. Uh, Never gonna do that again. It's like people will go like, oof, that was dumb, but well, did you learn from the mistake? Whereas I think if you try and hide it, it makes it worse. If
Yeah,
you
I said
try
it
and
was
brag about it, it makes it even worse than that.
real quick before Christian brings his wisdom. In terms of like the rules of the conversation. Look, we've already decided that we pretty much can yell at each other. But I'm curious how you guys in general feel about interruption. I had a close friend, and he said in his culture that interruption was a sign of familiarity, and that it was loving to interrupt one another, whereas mostly it's kind of looked down upon. I think it would be nice if we could all interrupt each other more. Ah, are you kidding me? We lost
I
Christian.
have ADHD, so you're just gonna have to
You
deal
wouldn't
with it.
shut up.
I interrupt
should
you.
interrupt you.
This is
Yeah.
good.
If I interrupt you, it's not like maliciously or like
And the
I'm
right
not trying to
person
be
will back
dominating.
down.
It just happens.
The right person will back down at the right
He
time.
came back.
And now it's
Give it
Christian's
me.
time. Go ahead, Christian. Teach us.
Please interrupt, Mitch.
So anyway, what I was saying.
Don't invalidate me. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kind of along for the ride here. I've heard bits and pieces here and there, but I was like putting my kids to bed, and then as usual, there's about 15 different complications that come up in that little process. So it took me a while to get in here, and I missed a lot of the conversation. But I liked the back and forth that I heard so far about kind of validation and where did the I remember like that was being talked about first, and then Mitch, you asked about yelling, if anyone had been yelled at, and how we like responded to that. Was that the question? Something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about yelling even. I just imagined us yelling, and then I couldn't stop asking about
Yeah. It's like how we felt about yelling, and like have people yelled at you in your life? Do they currently yell at you
Right.
now? Can you handle it? Like what's your response to yelling? It's like for me, as I said, it's like mostly in Discord, like people yell, but they don't do it out of nowhere. It's like you
In
usually
voice
tell
chat
it's gonna
or
happen.
text?
Voice chat. It's like how to yell in text. It's like
Yeah.
capital letters.
Sometimes
Okay.
people can
Hey,
really.
caps lock's there, buddy. Like, but I mean, that some people are just like you expect yelling. Like my friend Mark Lefevre, it's like yelling is his like default volume. I'm like, hey Mark, it's like, oh hello, I'm very happy. I'm like, oh great. But some people like they're very softly spoken. Like you don't expect like think of who in the TLC is like very soft, like a Sandy maybe, like she's not a yeller, or like you know,
Cherry,
from Pajot. You don't expect Pajot to yell like it's
Vervaeke.
Well,
Viveki, like to scream, it would probably like he'd probably lose all his glucose. He'd like faint or something. He can't
Right. So I did have a thought about earlier, Andre. You said something about validation being more relevant with like people who are close to you as opposed to strangers, random people, whatever. And I think I'm inclined to probably agree with that, with the caveat, and I think you may have talked about this too in a roundabout way afterwards, though. But sometimes either validation or invalidation from strangers can reveal either that you are being wrongfully validated by people close to you, or you're being falsely validated by people close to you. So I think there is something.
yeah.
I don't think you can be
It's
wrongly
tricky.
validated. I think if you sense something as being wrong validation, it's to do with conflict in the image of how you see yourself. Because if you say, well, you're not validating correctly, like you need to validate me in this way, and validation is validation. What they're validating on may be like how your external persona of how you see other people see you might not line up with how you see yourself. So if you validate me and be like, hey, you're very polite, I'll be like, I'm not polite.
That might be a bridge too far in ability to know what other people think. I mean, when somebody communicates something to us that they think about us, it makes sense for us to say, okay, that must be how I'm coming across. But I think Christian's point is sometimes the people in our circle may not be the most honest.
They're validating the external
with their feelings.
They're not validating.
That's all you can speak to.
They're
right?
validating like how they see you on the external.
That's what they can do.
But it's not validation. That's my point.
Well, so what I think by whatever I said, wrongful validation, or what I mean by that half of what I said was being okay. Let's say I didn't do heroin just once. Let's say I did heroin. I am doing heroin on an ongoing basis,
Yeah.
and I've cut off everyone who invalidates that part of me, which
Yeah,
has
it
now
doesn't
become
enable.
which has now become all of me.
Yep.
And now I just surround myself with enablers, right? Who, from my perception, are validating me. Now, are they actually validating me? Oh, okay, yes, but by wrongly validating me, I mean,
Well, that's
more
it's a moral.
more
That's a
accurately, what I
moral,
should
moral
say,
validation. That's what it is.
what's more accurate for me to say would be validating me to my detriment, right? So it's like,
okay. Right. Okay. So it's a logical validation, but morally, it's a wrong validation because it's
right,
not like the good way to be. So it's not virtuous. Like if they're
right,
validating your heroin use, they like yeah, they can validate it, but it's not good for like the soul and the person, like the psyche.
mhm,
But
I love
logically, they can still validate your habit.
the point Christian is bringing up because it makes me think of, because I was saying earlier that the people around you are a good metric for who you are, and so their validation is more meaningful in that way. Although it is so easy to hold back when you might normally criticize someone if you live with them, because you're just like, I don't want to deal with that. It's like things are fine right now. I'm not going to bring that up, but there might be a better sense of objectivity for someone who is a little more removed for you potentially in space. I still think, the people in your life are the best metric. But yeah, I think I take Christian's point. I think it's a really good one.
yeah. Well, related to that, I actually have had an interesting conversation with a in real life friend of mine a couple weeks ago. He's into like Myers-Briggs and stuff like that, and he was asking me a few. Well, he's not like he finds it an interesting tool to use for himself to like be more empathetic towards people, blah, whatever. But anyways, he's not like horoscopy with it or anything like that. So the questions he was asking, I asked him, well, am I answering those questions based off of how I see myself or how I think others see me? And then if it's how others see me, what do I mean by others? Am I talking about like people in my household or how others in general see me? And he's like, oh, it would be like, why are you differentiating between, it is others. Why are you differentiating between people in your household and people in general? And I was like, well, I might present a different self, like they might, strangers might see me differently than people closest to me see me. And then the assumption was from there, he's like, okay, yeah, so the people closest to you, I want people who have the most accurate view of who you are. And I was like, well, I actually don't know if that's the case, right? Like I would hope that's the case, that the people who are closest to me know me better than people who've maybe had like half a dozen interactions with me or kind of rubbed shoulders with me at work or whatever. But then there's likely sides of me that strangers get glimpses of with a unbiased view that people closest to me won't be able to see, either because I don't present that to them or because they can't see it because they're so close to me.
Well,
So there's this like
goes to the question, what does it mean to know you? Like what is like the truest version of yourself that can be known? Like is it the one you disclose the most brutally honest and like extensively to someone, or is it like the version that's more like externally and socially commendable and like acceptable? Like do you want like yourself to be the one that people can look at and go like, yeah, that's a good like identity, that's a good self? Or is it the one that's like, okay, here's me plus all my fuck ups plus like the things I think about myself which are good, but other people might not like view innately because I don't project them or don't like make them actionable that much. Like I think I'm virtuous and I think I'm compassionate, but I don't do acts of compassion that frequently. So if someone looks at me, they won't say that's a compassionate person. But when I look at myself, I go, yeah, I am compassionate. I could show it more.
So, there's only so much of your true internal self that you can keep from getting out.
Mhm.
There's only so much polish you can put on the sepulcher. People are going to be able to tell something about you. It's true that sometimes people make their whole life about hiding their true self, but I think in general, we can trust what's happening, people's perception of what's happening externally as a good indicator of what's
But
going on
it's
internally.
how much do you disclose? Like how much vulnerability do you show? How much do you disclose to others? Like how much honesty do you decide to have? Because like I could present myself to you guys like the way I am, and then be like, "Jokes on you." I'm actually an atheist, and like you're all dumb. Oh God, what a joke! And like I could flip the personality and just make it like a whole like projection or like an act, or I could be like, no, this is actually how I am. Like I don't talk shit. Like I just say what I say. I'm saying the honest truth.
I think those types of social experiments are pretty unusual, and that's why they didn't come up. You know, there are more exceptions than the rule.
You'd be like surprised in a way, like of like persona and personality, and like honesty, like all those things. Like how much stuff does go on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I found interesting over the years is like as self-conscious as I think I am, and I think I'm overly self-conscious, it still seems to be the case that other people know me better than I know myself. That's kind of interesting. And I guess, what do I mean by that though? And this is a per
that you don't notice in that way.
Mhm.
So like, pick up on things that like happening in your subconscious or in the background that sort of you're not putting attention to. And it's like they're like, oh, so like you did blah blah blah. Like that was interesting. It's like, oh, I didn't think I did that. It's like, no, you did. Because you're focused on like primary emotional things. Whereas like, do they really know you better and like your ambitions and your goals and thoughts better than you actually like your mind knows them? Like probably not, but they can see the behaviors and actions, I think.
We're at an impasse because either Christian knows himself better, that other people know him better, or Andre, who is someone else who should know him better, knows him better, that he knows himself better.
I don't.
I also think.
I think I'm trying to explain a way in which he could be right, but I don't think I know him better.
Yeah, I do think some of this is a temperament thing. Some of this is a nurture thing, or potentially a trauma thing, or whatever. So I'm saying that because I think for some people, it seems like most people I know, other than like one or two very close friends, most people I know, how do I put this? I think like I live too much up in my head, and I think people who are less people who are less heady, less abstract, less can we call it? Yeah, less self-conscious, I guess. Actually, ironically, people who are less self-conscious seem to know themselves better than I know myself. Because I think the ways in which I reflect on myself are really about when I conceive of a string of logic that leads to certain conclusions, I can then think that I believe that that conclusion is true when my behavior proves otherwise. Whereas other people don't seem to have that sort of awareness of their own contradiction of what they reflect in themselves versus how they act or whatever.
You're lacking the internal validity of your behavior reflected upon your like thoughts and actions. So like when you think you're doing something, versus what you're actually doing, it's not lining up and like reflecting the inaccurate picture. Whereas when people tell you what you're doing versus what you think you're doing, that's surprising to you. So it's projecting in sort of a sense of a lack of self-awareness. It's like, well, I thought this thing, I went out to do this thing, I thought I did like the right action, and my behavior reflected that, but it could be perceived as another way. So like if I'm trying to be like suave and charming and like flirty or something, and instead of just being actually genuinely charismatic, if I be sleazy instead, and I view that as being confident and like charismatic, then that's an example of what I'm talking about. So instead of just being like actually confident, but being like, oh, hey baby, nice pants. Like, did you just like oh, what's a girl like you doing in a place like that? Those hit up lines and sort of like, oh, did you just get kicked out of the Angel Convention? Is that in town? You know what I'm saying? Like that sort of like really cheesy, like sleazy sort of thing. So you may think that behavior is reflecting your intentions. It's like to be flirty, charismatic, sort of like a confident guy, but it's coming off and through your behavior to everyone else as being like, oh, like the guy's a sleaze. Like stay away from him. So that lack of self-awareness there, the projected one, that's sort of an example of that. It's like you think you've done the right thing, but people tell you, no, you're coming off as like dirty, sleazy, and you think you're being charismatic, but you're actually not. You're coming off in a different way.
Yeah. What do you think, Jason?
Dude, I don't know. I'm just listening.
Okay, so back to us, back to the important guys. So I'm kidding. See, so there I was being offhandedly sort of like cheeky, but may came off like I was being a dickhead and being like rude. But like that's another example. I was like, yeah, I think I'm doing the right action of trying to be a bit like tongue in cheek, but jumping into that, it may just come off as being like, wow, what a rude thing to say. Like, oh, that's like really abrupt. Like, what an idiot. Like, so there's another like, I don't have lack of self-awareness. Like, I knew what I was doing, but because other people perceive the behavior differently, I can also see if I put myself in the other person's shoes, like how it could come off. So like what I've done, like with my social anxiety and stuff, is made myself ready for like the alternate response. So if it falls flat, I'm like, oh no, I didn't mean it that way, blah 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 blah, and like I explain what was the intention, rather than just thinking, no, I've done the right thing, don't need to prepare. And if it falls flat, I'm not like what's their issue? Like, why is this gone wrong? It's not my fault. It must be their fault. And being sort of, I don't know, argumentative or reactionary in that situation.
Yeah, I think there's definitely got to be some discernment in there, right? Because I think there are certainly times where I'm just misunderstood by someone else, right? And perhaps, right, not blaming them for their misunderstanding, because perhaps 9 out of 10 interactions with someone who did and said the thing that I did, it meant such and such a motivation behind it, right? So, but there's also that healthy, perhaps most of the time, or maybe all the time, when something like that happens, it's like, okay, I'm pretty sure that my motives were in line with my actions there, and I genuinely came from this place of what I intended to come across as. Other times I've had, I guess the easiest example to give would be something like, okay, as a Christian, I know that I need to forgive people, and let's say someone wrongs me.
By the way,
and
I'm going to make coffee, but I'm listening.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Let's say someone does something for which I feel like I need to forgive them, right? And I think about that, I pray about it, and I think that I've forgiven them, and then I come across that person again a couple of days later, a week later, a month later, whatever, and I get the emotional sensation that indicates to me that perhaps I haven't forgiven them all the way, or maybe it's someone I come in contact with every day, and the way I'm reacting to them is very kind of nasty, like little jabs here and there. And I don't realize it because I, quote unquote, believe that I've forgiven them. But then they bring it to my attention, like, you say you've forgiven me. Hey, I'm sorry for what I've done to you. You say that you've forgiven me, but do you realize that you have an edge in your voice when you talk to me, or you realize you snapped at me today for something little, right?
That's the whole forgive but don't forget thing. And so if you say I forgive but don't forget, then you're not forgiving. Because if you hold on to that thing, like you're using it as ammunition for the future. So, well, I'm not going to forget that you wronged me. Well, you haven't forgiven that person.
Right.
So in your examples, it's like if emotion comes up, then you haven't properly forgiven, or like you haven't processed the process of forgiveness. So it's like, oh, right. I feel like a little sting seeing them. It's like, oh, they wronged me. It's like, well, if you feel that and you say you've forgiven them, have you really? Because if you've really forgiven them, be like, oh, okay, they wronged me, but like I've gone through that. We're fine. Like we've worked through it.
Right. Yep. Do you think there's? Do you think I'm thinking of extreme cases, right? So do you think there's room for not forgetting where, let's say, where, like, for the sake of wisdom, right? So, so not trying to be careful how I say this. Someone has committed chronic abuse to you over a long span of time. You want to forgive them. You want to be freed. You're no longer being abused by this person. You've removed yourself from the situation somehow, right? And you're now in a place where you're able to, conceptually at least, you're able to forgive them. And some Christian teaching might say, and by Christian teaching, I don't mean like scriptural teaching, but just some pastors or leaders might say, you need to forgive them and forget. You need to forgive and forget, right? And even, and then you would say, well,
forgiveness and graciousness.
Do I have to be friends with them? Like, I don't really want to be close with them anymore. And some would say, well, then that means you haven't forgiven them. Whereas I would say that's probably being wise, right? And in a sense, that means you haven't forgotten it because, right?
You can forgive someone who's toxic, but you can cut them out of your life. You can forgive them for having wronged you, but go recognize that they're not good for you. If it's like the heroin thing, it's like if people are enabling you and validating your habit, you can get over the habit and like kick the addiction, and then you can go, okay, I don't want those enablers in my life anymore, because they're just gonna, like, if I relapse, they're just gonna go like, oh, hey, welcome back, like here's the pipe, here's the needle, like we were waiting for you. But you can forgive them for enabling you because they're also like enraptured by that addiction. So what are they going to like turn to first? Are they going to turn to that sort of behavior that validates their own bad behavior and like their own flaws? Or they're going to listen to people who are naysayers and saying, no, you're wrong, you shouldn't do this, and telling them that's a bad thing, when all they want to do is that thing. It's like, you're not going to jump to people like who are throwing arguments and contradictions and like saying that you're wrong when everything to you feels so right, and you can't, like, it's a struggle to get out of it. You You're going to jump to the people who are like more psychologically comfortable and be like, well, okay, they're saying it's okay, and I'm friends with these people. Like I get along with them, but you, I don't know, and you're telling me I'm a bad person for doing this one thing that I love. Like, why would I listen to you? Like, you seem like, of course, like you would say that you don't love this same thing. So,
Right.
but you can go into the future once you like not addicted and go, well, okay, I understand why they enabled me. They're not bad people fundamentally for doing so, so I forgive them, like, because they're also addicted. But it'll be another step if they didn't have that addiction, and they were like, say, like they didn't do any drugs, and they sat around you whilst you were in the throes of a heroin addiction and said, "Yeah, I think this is really cool what you're doing. Like you're stealing from your family, and like you can't go a day without taking heroin. You're always high. Like that makes you really cool. Like you're really interesting, and they pump you up. Like that would be genuine maliciousness because they're like seeing the bad sides of you, and they're trying to like amplify them as if they're good, whilst not having anything to do with like the experience or drug or like addiction itself. They're just that's both enabling validation, and I would say it's like manipulation of like the scenario in a way. But yeah, like I'd say overall, like you can forgive those enablers, and then they're not necessarily going to change. But
I have a question. Going back to, well, I guess we're still on the topic. I'm just having a little trouble, I guess, following. So going back to like affirming and stuff, this just popped in my head because you're in Australia, right, Andre?
Mm-hmm.
So can you affirm a platypus? Because isn't it just like a mix of everything?
But what's that?
Is that a dumb question?
What can I like? What does that statement mean? Can I affirm a platypus?
Yeah, like what do you affirm it? I guess if you affirm it as a platypus, it's just a platypus. But it's like, isn't it like all the animals just mashed into one thing? Like it's a duck.
Well, I think can I confirm that's true? Yes, but can I affirm like an affirmation to a platypus? That like platypus, you are worthy, you are loved, you are like you look in the mirror and you are beautiful. Like an affirmation, I think is different to the confirmation. It is like it is a like a weird marsupial, not marsupial.
Yeah, like how do you validate a platypus? They seem like, I mean, I guess we validate them because they're just they got like all the identities.
And it's got like a poison barb in its leg, like but only I think on males, but not females.
Have you seen one in person? Or are they pretty rare?
Maybe in a zoo once, but
oh, okay, gotcha.
I can't remember. But yeah, I think affirm is like not the operative word there. It's like,
yeah,
it's like,
maybe
it's like,
right.
Can I affirm that you're Jewish? Like, what does that mean? Like, as opposed to, can you confirm that you're Jewish? It's like, is this true? Yes or no?
Like, it's kind of the platypus question is actually makes me think of, and I don't know if this is where either consciously or subconsciously you were going, Jason, but can you be what's the word I'm looking for? Can you be validated if you are a person who isn't, to the degree that you're not integrated, can you be validated? And likewise, to the degree that someone you're relating to isn't integrated, can they be validated?
Well, I think
maybe integrated isn't the right word, but
I think that question, yeah, I mean, we might just get caught up in semantics here, but I think that question is something that I was actually thinking about earlier today, and I messaged McMull about, and because it's like, I've been having to think about this a lot, because it's not my normal disposition, because my normal disposition is kind of like, pride is a bad thing, you need to be selfless, and I do think there's a promotion of selfishness that is legit, that I've been continually like having to entertain and actually be humble and try to understand. Abigail with me on this, but it's, you know, because the thing is, like, if you're constantly trying to get other people's like affirmations or validations or something, and you're kind of, you know, there's some people you would call wishy-washy or something, and then it's kind of, they're just catering to people. They're always putting on a face so that other people will like them and affirm them, and their identity just kind of like, they can't find it. They can't actually find their own true self, and they end up just like kind of dissolving or something like that. And so I think there is a way, like, and then yeah, it's like, if you are like, who are you actually affirming, or who are you friends with, you know? Because you could see someone and they act like this way around you, then the next person they get around, they're a totally different person, and it's like they might not even know who they are as much as you don't know who they are, and then you see that and you're like, I don't even know who this person is. Is it a duck? Is it a cat? Is it is it a kangaroo? It's got all the.
What if I act different around different people? Am I really? Is there some self? There's some innate self I'm being disingenuous.
Everyone does.
No, I don't think so, because that's the thing. I think that's one of the things Christian said earlier too. Like, there's a way. Like, I cut up with you guys in a way I don't ever do with my family, like my parents or anything. Like, I don't. Like, I can just be goofy. I can make penis jokes. I can do all that stuff, and it's not one Mitch. Weird. But yeah, and I wouldn't do that around my parents, and so I don't really feel like I'm being like I'm not being genuine. So I don't know. That's an interesting question. Do you hide parts of yourself as in forms of respect? I don't really know. I don't know why we do that.
Well, I guess probably the simple way to look at it is like my cat's trying to get out. Yeah, I didn't just kick my cat. Don't worry. So I think there's what seems like the common sense thing that just comes to mind, the intuitive thing that comes to mind is validation, just like your personality is. There's the bulk of it that, in a healthy person, let's say, the bulk of it that is found in close proximity to you. And by close proximity, I mean you and the people who are closest to you. Right? It's kind of like formed by that, and you can get a good like 85%. Let's say accuracy rate or something like that. You can get 85% of the information of who you are reflected in the people around you, and they can only validate you up to that extent, which is most of the way, right? And then there's those pieces of you that are genuine pieces of you that they perhaps necessarily can't see because they're so close to you. There's certain aspects of you that can only get. I don't. Maybe it's not. Maybe the closeness isn't necessarily the factor, but just because of the fact of you're going to naturally relate to certain people in different ways. They're going to relate to other people, and certain parts of who you are going to come out with those people, right? As opposed to other people, like even between two siblings, right? You might be really close to one sibling and not so close to the other, and yet that sibling that you're not so close to, they might see something in you accurately and correctly that the other sibling who you're closer to doesn't see, right? So I think the intuitive answer is all of the above, right? So I gotta go find my cat.
You know, this time-honored piece of advice that we give to one another when we're about to go into a fresh social situation, which is be yourself. I mean, what we probably mean by that is don't make validation from these people you're in game, because it's only going to lead you astray. You know, just go forth and participate in the attitudes and actions that you already value. And they can take it or leave it in that sense. It would actually be pretty hard. I mean, I don't see how you could genuinely be deceptive just in terms of behavior, because even that's not deceptive. If my end game is to go into a new social situation and just try to play the game and discern what somebody else wants out of me and give them that, it's not being disingenuous. It's maybe not the wisest thing in the world, and it could lead me to do some things that
No, it's being acting within like in inauthentic manner. If you're not acting authentically, like you don't actually believe the things you're doing, you know it. You already know it, and are conscious that it's wrong, and you're trying to get like a different result from not being honest and like open about like your intentions or like stating it clearly, or you're trying to manipulate like the premise from like the result. So like I could bend, like I can say something to you that I know is going to get a certain response, and in that way like feed you lines where I'll placate your ego and I like make you happy, but it's completely not like authentic and honest to what I mean. So it's like, say you like ice cream, I'm like, oh yeah, ice cream's the best, isn't it? Like you know, like my father owns an ice cream factory. Like do you want to come with me to the ice cream factory? It's like, oh yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, so and I'll drive my car to the ice cream factory and you get all the free ice cream you want. You're like, oh, that sounds great. But like I don't have a father, I don't have an ice cream factory, I don't have a car. I just lie about all of that, but it makes you feel good.
You can lie to people. It's very difficult to behave in such a way that is disingenuous to yourself. You know, I mean, what way can I behave that is a lie? Really?
I know a lot of ways we could be living a lie.
What is a way that you could behave that was a lie that isn't spoken?
What if you were like in the closet as a gay man, living as a straight man for years and years, and like you were denying it the whole time? You were living a lie. And then like when you're 30, 35, 40, like you're like, okay, no, they say I'm bisexual. No, I am really gay, but like I've been holding it in this whole time. Like you were living in a completely different way to how you felt. In that way, you're living a lie. But it's like sort of technically a lie. But
it's pretty hard to live a lie. Like you could say, well, if the
people do that,
man went out and dated a female, is he lying?
But gay men like do this and have like a friend of mine like came out to me like what was it, like 5-6 years ago with like part of the techno scene, like always see him on the dance floor. He had a wife and children, and he's like, yeah, so they might. But do you think he was honest about like raising a family, presenting as straight, and then being like, actually, you know what, I'm going to separate from my wife. I actually am gay, and he lives now as a gay man, and like that's his life now. But he still cares for his family. Is that a lie? Is that
so I don't think he lied by marrying a woman.
But so what did he do? If his identity was fully,
he made a choice that he thought was more amenable to his life. But it's very, very. I'm trying to really imagine whether you can lie with your behavior, because you can do whatever you want.
I think you're lying to yourself. It's like denial, lying to yourself, because
it's not obvious that you are.
But there's some subconscious part of you all along, I think, that feels like you're not doing what's representing you the best, and it's not truly you. And then one day you wake up and you go, actually, no, this isn't me. In that way, like you are lying to yourself to a point, and then you're honest to like accept your actual identity. But as when we say lie, it's like
that's what I'm saying. What is your actual
identity? Can a mute person not lie? Is it impossible for a mute person to lie?
That's kind of what I'm suggesting.
I mean, a mute person can lie. They just write it down.
Can you lie without words? Right.
A mute person, a mute quadriplegic.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing you might,
as long as you can affirm or confirm or disagree with something, you can lie.
If you weren't a doctor,
if someone can like shake their head, if you say, "Is it raining?" It's not raining, and I go
to a hospital with an ID badge that you made, and maybe that would be a behavioral lie. I've literally dressed up as something I was not. My sole intention was to convince you that I was something that I was not.
That's not just a lie; that's just fraud.
Yes, it is a fraudulent lie.
No, it is fraud.
A lie.
It's a lie, but it's.
So, So I think, Mitch, I'm pretty sure you can live a lie, or you can act a lie and not speak it. Um, there is a so with speaking, right? You can wrongfully say something that you think is true, and it turns out to not be true, and people might call you a liar for saying that, right? Or you misunderstood, or maybe even misunderstood yourself, right? So let's say you were uh, the homosexual example, right? Perhaps you genuinely thought that you were, perhaps you didn't allow yourself to reflect on the fact that maybe I'm homosexual, right? Perhaps you felt attraction, right? But you also really valued this friendship that you had with this woman, and so you married this woman, and to you, as to many genuinely heterosexual people, it's a calculation of some sorts of, this is what I'm supposed to do in society. I'm almost 30 years old. I should get married soon, and then before I'm 40, I should start having some kids. Like that sort of thing, and then you end up falling in love with a male coworker or something like that, right? And so
This
you
doesn't
weren't
sound like
exactly living. You weren't living a lie, right? In that case, it's just you maybe misunderstood yourself, or whatever you think might happen in that case. It could just be not knowing, right? Not understanding, making a mistake, whatever. Not the same thing as living a lie.
because so much of
You
behavior
could be someone who wants to be who sees an opportunity in the air for a conservative uprising of sorts. And so, knowing full well that you're homosexual because you've been seeing male prostitutes for several years, you marry a woman and present yourself verbally and in action, right, as a heterosexual person, right? I think even if you hadn't said that, even if you hadn't said, I'm heterosexual, right? Let's say you never say it, but when you go to do your campaigns, your wife is always with you. You never call her your wife. You never say that you're married, right? Verbally, you never say any of that stuff. But
yeah, that's
so
probably
everyone else.
If your intention is to deceive, yeah, it's kind of a case closed. But I think it's very hard behaviorally not to be yourself. And it's kind of sad because of so much of the way we're acting is the way we really want to be, even if we're not there yet inside. So you could see someone feeding the poor every weekend, and then they get frustrated one day and kick a homeless person or something. And it's like, see, like you were living a lie this whole time. You're acting like you really cared about people that were impoverished.
There's something.
Or you're feeding the home.
Oh, sorry.
I'll make it really quick. You're feeding the homeless people so that you can get to know them, so that you can pick them up after they leave the shelter and take them to your house. And it turns out you're a serial killer. You've presented by action. You know what I'm saying?
This feels like so anomalous to me. But I mean, yeah, that's true. If you're intentionally trying to deceive someone, I mean, what were you saying, Jason?
I think we do it on a much lesser scale too. But that's just the easiest example to give.
What were you about to say, Jason? Are you frozen?
Oh no, there's just something you said to me a long time ago that's always stuck with me. Is I thought it was great because you were talking about how we have the saying like, "Oh, now we see their true colors" and things like that.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, why is that? Like when someone has this moment where they just lose control, why is that? Yeah, it's like that's their true colors. What about the scar they put on every day? It's like, what about that? Yeah,
I
thought that was great.
And what's sad about that is it prevents people from like taking a moral stance on anything because often they know that they're going to fail in the thing that they're purporting, and it makes them not.
What do you mean by that?
If I'm going to say like, hey, you cannot lie. It is wrong to lie. Yeah. I know that I'm going to get caught in a lie someday, and it's just going to be like, see, there, and it prevents. So I'm just not going to say anything. I'm not going to take a moral stance because I know I'm going to fail.
Yeah, That's why I
Yeah.
still like that. I still love that. I bring it up all the those scenes from Tombstone, where he says, "My hypocrisy knows no bound." But then I love that ending even more, where he gives the badge back, and then he says, "It appears my hypocrisy only goes so far." And I'm like, I'm waiting for that day when it's like, when I'll no longer be a liar. It's like, it appears my hypocrisy only goes so far. I think it's
That's
gonna
so
be on my
good.
deathbed though. It's probably gonna be my last breath.
This is like the George Jones song, right? He stopped loving her today.
So I'm like, I'll be fully transparent, and
You do it.
well, it's probably blatantly obvious, anyways. But I'm so invested in this particular topic because uh, oh, now I know your true colors thing. Like, so anytime that happens to me, it frustrates me to no end. It really frustrates me when it's true, and it has been true several times, where I try to present myself one way, right? And I will, okay, I will consciously, okay, know that I mean it, but I don't mean it in my heart, and it just comes out, right? And I brought forgiveness because that's like a frequent one of mine. Patience, right? Oh, people who don't know me that well. Oh, you're so patient. You're so patient. No, I just don't like conflict. Is there a problem? No, there's no problem. Or even if I don't verbally say, no, there's no problem, right? People look at me and say, that doesn't bother you? Like, wow, look how well he's handling it. I would say third person, and it'll come back to me like, so and so is really surprised at how well you handled yourself in that situation. Like, you're such a peaceful guy. You're so easygoing. Blah blah. I'm like, yeah, you didn't know. You didn't know that in my heart I wanted to kill that person.
No, you come off very like abrasively, and like you're really angry and like so loud. It's like, notice how it's so loud. It's like I can't get a word in. It's like it's just it won't stop yelling at us. It's not
The
no,
thing-
it's definitely not like quiet, soft, reasonable, and patient. No, that's not him. That's what I picked
It's
up.
so the thing is, Christian, I like kind of what you're saying, because if that thing happens and they say, aha, now it's true colors, and I'll get indignant because look at all the times beforehand. There, of course, I mean, if you do something, I mean, there's some part of you where that isn't reflective of what's happening in you internally. Um, and really, we get what they're saying. It's like, you can put on a good face because it's useful to you, not just because, it's what you want. I mean, lots of it's crazy, but probably a great percentage of the good being done in the world is done because people want to have others look on them as a good person. So I mean, it's not a crazy statement.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that's one of the things. That's another movie popped in my head. But what was it? The latest Spider-Man, unless they did another one where, not the cartoon ones, but where, well, kind of that idea of like you kind of let go of people knowing you as the villain. It was kind of the same thing in Batman. Didn't that happen too? He was like, you do a good deed even though you know you're gonna come off as the viddle.
That's
Like,
true
that's
heroism.
hard to do. That's really hard to do because in the Avengers movies, like Tony Stark, offers up his life, gives the ultimate sacrifice, and then everybody knows him as the guy who did that. And then the next, like Peter Parker movie, Spider-Man movie, he's kind of known as the villain in that one because I can't remember. There was something like that where you're kind of even, you're giving up your legacy. You're still going to do the good deed, even though everybody's going to hate you for it or know you as the villain or something like that.
Yeah,
That's tough.
That's the real deal.
Yeah. Like, how do you trust that? Like, I don't know how you go to your grave or something like that. Like if you were going to do a good deed and you're like, I know I need to do this, but even if it wasn't world changing, but you think in your head, well, even when I do this, everybody's going to see me as Hitler, basically, and think of me throughout history as
They
Hitler.
care too much about what people think. That's the case. Like, what's the better thing to do? The thing that's like virtuous and good, and like it's gonna like have like second order effects of like that person who receives that good deed might do something good, or like they'll feel better, their life will improve, or like to be like, no, I'm not gonna do that good thing because people are gonna like think I'm bad, and, like they're not gonna like. They're gonna like say things
Yeah,
about me which
I mean,
aren't
it's
true.
easy.
They're gonna be like, "Oh, he's not a good guy." It's like, who cares what the fuck
Yo,
they say?
I
You
did.
did the
yeah,
good
but I mean,
thing. That's
no,
important.
I mean, you do. That's what I get what you're saying, and it's easy to say that because that's the easy and the right response, and that's the thing I would hope to do. But I guess what I'm saying is that, I mean, it's like if you have it in your head rolling around, I'm going to go down in history as the most hated person ever. That's a fear, like I think I haven't quite reckoned with, and is a little bit unfathomable to me because everybody would cast you out. Like you'd be alone. That's like almost like thinking that's kind of like going to hell for people. Like you would be cast out from society. I'm gonna be like no one's gonna accept me ever again. But I had doing this one good deed. So it's like I would still hope I'd do the deed. It would just be it would be scary to actually like really wrestle with that. I don't
That's attachment
know
to
if I could.
legacy. Like that's
Yeah.
it's a sort of thinking where like, and maybe it's like a Christian or like Jewish worldview as well. It's like where you can't just live a life and like not get married or not find a partner and not like have children. You can go through life and even hedonistically and not achieve anything at all and just live life without having to like spread your seed, spread your bloodline, like find your soulmate or whatever. You can have absolutely no legacy at all, just live your life out and then die, and that's completely fine by you. Some people have like an adverse anxiety to that, and they're like, no, I've got to leave my mark on the world, otherwise my life hasn't meant anything. What's the point of living my life out and like I don't have no impact on anyone else? I don't leave my like stamp on the world. Like people don't remember me. Like that would be a pointless life, and it makes them anxious and makes them like worried. So like they stress themselves to get in a relationship. They stress themselves to have children, and like they want to pass on their message, even like if that message is unsuccessful or like somewhat meaningless in the end.
Well,
But like
yeah, I mean,
that's the same thing. It's like I want people to remember me. It's like 8 billion
I would
people.
too.
Not caring what anybody thinks is, I mean, that's self-destructive. I mean, you can't take
It's
that
not
shit.
no. It's not caring what anybody thinks. It's not caring so much about the weight attached to like their thoughts.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I mean,
there's so many
I
people are
definitely
out
want people to
there.
remember me.
There's going to be like a percentage that do remember you, right? Like a small percentage of 8 billion people. And then of those people, how many of those are going to just have short-term memories of you and like be able to access them like freely and
which your great-great-grandmother's name, right?
And then how many are going to be like have long-term memories, and like a lot of them be like, oh yeah, like he was such a good guy. Like I remember this, we did that. I remember this time, that time. Like that's probably like less than 10 people maybe that can recall that. But number of people like that you could actually come in touch with, they'll be like, yeah, I remember meeting that guy. Like, seemed pretty, like, he seemed nice.
But look,
like,
that's
also your legacy.
I mean, there are strangers that kind of changed your whole way of thinking, right? Because everyone you meet, whether you're going to be with them for the long haul, like a family member, or you're standing behind them in the grocery store line, you have an opportunity. And what are you going to do with the opportunity? And you're assessing it differently. Everybody's got a relational schematic usually in their head, and they're saying, I need to give this much effort and attention to these people and less here and so on, or different here and different here. And I think
it's legacy versus influence. Like when say you're in the grocery like aisle, and like you could do a small thing to that one person that like makes their day better, and their day gets better, and then like the next day they have a better day, and then you could kickstart like a process of like them like straightening out their life or something, just from being like, hey, like that those genes really look good on you. That like that's your influence. Whereas your legacy, like commenting on someone's genes is not going to be your legacy. like that person will remember like
Right, dude, he
that
was
one
such a nice
that
guy.
one person that they can't remember the name and they can't
Always
remember
said
the
something that
face,
could pick my day
but
up.
but it was someone who like a stranger who said, "Your jeans look good." They'll remember like that thing happened. They won't remember you, and it's not like a living part of your legacy that goes on. Whereas having children or like having a wife or like I don't know, starting a charity or something, like putting something in your name where people have to remember who you are, your memories, and your identity all in one for however many years. I think that's quite a bit different. You want to live on through time and not be forgotten, rather than just have like lasting memories that will fade on. Because when you die, the people who remember you are only going to live for a certain time, and then they'll die. So unless they pass your memories on and be like, okay, son, this is important. So like my best friend 20 years ago, here's what we got up to, and you've got to pass this on to your children because it's important. And I'll be like, why, Dad? It's like, oh, because I want people to remember that guy. And like as time goes on, like what's the importance of your friend like 20 years ago going to be? It's just like stories passed down. So it's yeah. How much weight do you attach to that?
Yeah, I don't know. We gotta play it as it lays. You know, a lot of times it's not attached to our particular person, but I have a sense if I shoot somebody a bird that I've caused a ripple kind of negativity. I have a sense if I compliment someone's genes that I've caused a ripple of positivity, and it won't might necessarily be attached to my particular identity, but
Yeah,
which is to your point. I mean, nobody ought to be trying to live for other people's validation. We know that. We know that. We all know that. You can't live your life that way. You can't win with people. Just do the right thing. So it goes.
yeah. Mitch, your hair is looking very nice today. I think you should go out with that hair and be like, yeah, I've got I'm nice hair, Mitch, and I'm special, and I feel good and confident in myself. I'm
My
going to go to the world and
grandchildren are
project
going to be
that.
talking about you, Andre. My grandchildren are going to remember this legacy of you having told me.
And Jason, I like your patience and your quietness.
Oh, come on. He got patience and quietness, and I got a nice hairdo.
Well, no, because you have nice hair. He
Nice
doesn't.
hair,
But, like
dude.
he hasn't said a lot. So whereas you have, so it's
Yeah,
weighing.
shut up.
Because
Shut up.
he could make his hair better if he like got a comb and didn't go for the
Tell you what,
bohemian
though,
look. But
Jason's aesthetic right now, in that, is that in your camper?
Yeah.
is
Yeah, it
aesthetic.
is.
Oh, dude, the aesthetic in there is just so. I just want to be. I would just want like you
The
to.
problem is
You know,
I keep glitching out so bad because the internet's even worse out here.
hey,
Sorry, what would you say?
if you leave for a long trip or something in the near future, can you just set up your camera on a perpetual live stream that's just like the inside of your camper, and it's like just like this ambient kind of
Oh, if I
stream,
leave, just wait.
just like a lo-fi kind of 24/7 stream of your camper's insides.
Oh, just like a live stream?
Just promise me you'll do this.
A live stream of just
More
inside my
questions.
camper and just let it
Just
go? Is that I keep glitching out. I can't hear. I didn't hear
Yeah.
everything you said.
Yeah.
Okay. I
What's the
Yeah, I
live
think
stream
I'm
of the
gonna hop off
camper?
here though. My internet is being super bad.
Yeah.
It's naughty.
Okay. Thanks for
Naughty.
hosting us.
You're welcome. I guess I can end out here. Thanks for
See
hopping
you.
on, Andre. It was good to talk to you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
It was a good chat.
Good talking to you.
Yep.
Bye, guys.
All right, you guys have a good night. See ya.
So
And mouse.